Hi, Kim Brassor, your host of podcast One Voice Evolving and soon to be podcasts for Trouble with 12 Step and probably Leading with Heart. So this has been a season of surrender, leaps of faith, weird landing zones, and now we are getting out of season 3, Resilience Reimagined, and our collective lives have been reimagined. So let me tell you a little more about what that means. The last time I did a live with you like this was after I got my hair cut. And that was me telling you something has shifted internally that is not going back. Well, one voice evolving, something has shifted internally that is not going back. This week, after a couple of years ago, I got off of Facebook and off of all things Meta and off of X. And when I discovered, there was a point in time when I discovered that social media that had once been a safe family community space with each election cycle was turning into more and more of a shit show, more and more of a street fight. And now, of course, in real time, we're seeing that street fight literally come to the streets in the cities of America. This is not your mama's menopause that I'm in, and this is not the country and the lifestyle that is our story of the American dream. This is somebody's nightmare. This is what I call a fractured family fairy tale. And I'm kind of professional at talking about the dysfunction and the paths out of organizational toxic shame and behaviors. But today, I want to welcome you to our re-envisioned space. You've seen lots of filters and lots of renditions and lots of iterations because life here is nothing if not a leap of faith followed by a season of surrender when the landing zone doesn't look the way we thought that it coulda, shoulda, woulda looked. And when life doesn't go the way we think it should, it is human nature to find somebody to blame or to blame ourselves. So then we end up apologizing for things we didn't do or mean to do, or we end up being angry and hateful and hurtful toward people who we want to hold responsible. All of it is a trauma response. None of it is rooted in our shared humanity, our love of our neighbors, our compassion for the less fortunate or the more fortunate. In fact, we have a crisis of lack of compassion across the board. It's always things that cause division among the unity that is nature. If I look outside, I see diversity. I see diversity in the animals, in the plant life, in the things we eat, in the places we choose from, in our nationalities, in our preferences. And the problem is when we decide that my preference becomes your imperative and I'm going to impose that on you because anybody who has a trauma response, me, doesn't like to be told what to do. And certainly doesn't like anybody imposing on my God-given rights or community-driven rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. It doesn't say you're going to be happy. It says you get to have a voice in what makes you happy. And my voice has always been the deviant voice in the room. When I was in churches, if they were lifting their hands in worship, I didn't. I don't know. Maybe I just like to watch people squirm. When I did groups of small groups, I would purposefully, and I still do this, when I go in to do corporate training, I purposely sit somewhere else every time because it doesn't take long for people with sense of entitlement to feel uncomfortable or displaced when they don't have control of the seating. And it doesn't take long, we as herd animals, to share space in a church pew, in a meeting room, in a weekend retreat, and sit in the same place every time. And within about a day or two, think that that's somehow ownership or ours. If you're in dating relationships and you get with somebody who thinks that because you've dated for 3 weeks, or oh my God, because you've kissed, that gives them some sense of entitled and ownership over your time, your affection, your friends, or your body. Red flag, red flag, red flag. I am a multi-passionate creator. I don't stay in one lane. I weave. When I, as a leader, I lead like a woman, and women, we lead from an inclusive web. A Web of Inclusion was the book I read in college. And it says that everything is connected, and we all play a part, make a contribution to the greater good that we all enjoy. And if it goes south, we all hold together and hold each other up and make sure that we survive. We are herd animals. We are also pack animals. And one of the most recent things I just read was that there is a misconception about herd animals and pack animals. You're imagining that there's an alpha male in the wolf pack, for example, who leads the way, and 17 others follow because they're following leader, because that's nature's order. That's if men are studying that phenomena. If women study it, they pay attention to every animal in the pack, not just the leader, not just the one in front, every animal in the pack. And every animal in the pack is looking toward which way they think they ought to go. And when three-fourths of the pack focus in on a path that they think is going to make sense, then the leader, because that's what leaders do, pick up on the momentum of that and go the way that they want to go. The purpose of a leader is not to make more leaders. The purpose of a leader is to make followers. And if you want to think you're a leader, turn around and see who's following you. And are they following you from free choice and will, or are they following you because there's going to be a punishment or price to pay if they don't? There's a real difference between um, compliance and compassion. There's a real difference. It's not what you do, but why you do it. That is the worth of you, who you are, and the measure of your integrity. We can both do the same things, but if we don't have the same motive, we're going to have different outcomes, and we're going to have different experiences. And the story we tell ourselves is going to be massively different. Today, I want to speak to those of you born into a story you didn't write. You were taught through tone and tradition um, to be still, be quiet, and don't make waves. That was my programming. And that was a script that came into play long before I had a chance to learn my own lines, and maybe even before I was born or conceived, because it was my mama's handed down from her mama, handed down from her great granddaddy. It lives in our DNA for 3 to 4 generations at least. It sounded like safety. It looked like being obedient, being a good girl, or like submission, being a good wife. But inside, I was dying on the vine because I was not born to be still or silent. I was born to see what I see, know what I know, and say so, even if it's an uncomfortable truth, even if the people in power don't want me doing that, and especially when they tried to keep me small, still, or quiet. That has been my story since I was 4 years old. It didn't change when I turned 40 or more. But spirit doesn't stay boxed in. Purpose doesn't lie dormant forever. And somewhere around midlife, this small, still voice starts to stir with a frequency and a freshness and and a fire that disturbs the pattern of the peace of the people around you. You've changed since menopause. You changed after the kids moved out. You changed since you started that new job, went back to school, did this, did that. You're different. And the people in your life, when you change, here's the change management tip. When you change, the people around you try to tighten the screws to make you change back. Why? Not for the good of you, not for the good of humanity, not for the good of your family. So they can be more comfortable and unchallenged in their perceived position of power. This is not your mama's menopause. Those sleepless nights and hot flashes are the precursor of an inner flame whose time has come. When that veil of monthly hormonal shifts lifts, you get a clarity and a vision for yourself and of what is actually the F happening around you that is unprecedented. There's a reason why grandmothers, by nature, are here on the planet past our childbearing years, because we are the memory keepers. We are the legacy. We are the memory. So you don't forget that you were born for more than doing dishes or serving coffee or being quiet or being a tradwife. Eventually, the soul starts whispering. And if you listen long enough, it begins to stir you to action because you can't feel and think at the same time. And if you are called to action, your body is ready to mobilize. Trying to keep that still and quiet, I did that my whole childhood. It was called binge eating. You want to stay still, small, and quiet, there's only one way to do that. Keep feeding your face with food so that you can stay numbed out enough that you never say, do, or be anything that makes anybody else uncomfortable. Isn't it odd that in the last 3 years, since my remarriage, actually, this marriage um, appeals to me? This marriage agrees with me because in these 3 years, I have dropped the weight of a lifetime of toxicity, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. And my body has reflected the new and improved version. And here's what I didn't see not coming. I've never moved in the world in a size small until this last year. And I saw that people treated me differently and responded to me differently, and doors opened differently than they had in the past, and that was all good. I also noticed how much more exposed I felt, how very anxious I was in public spaces, because where before I had enough volume that it wouldn't be easy to knock me over or carry me off. Now, much simpler little process for somebody with any kind of muscle. So I had my own fears to work through and I had my own revelations. But here's what I have seen clearly that I never saw before. And here's why I believe I never saw it. I never saw it before because I was so busy with the diet culture, be all the perfect things, everything in our society tells us to be. There was always something inside of me that needed to be fixed, that I could hyperfixate on, that had nothing to do with how people were actually treating me outside of that. And if I had a job, I felt lucky to have a job because obese women, there's a stigma there. If I had a man, I felt lucky to have a man, and they would tell me, nobody's going to want you. And in my earlier years, I believed it. In my later years, I set out to prove them wrong. And now, yeah, you go pound sand. That's not true, and I know it. So when I would move in professional spaces in this body, this mindset, this clarity, I was surprised by the level of gamesmanship that would come my way from professional men in professional settings when I was there as the consultant because they had a problem going on in their location that needed outside help. And they would try to silence me or assume I was going to be their gopher or or especially hitch my paycheck to their agenda. Well, here's what, I have to laugh when that happens because I have to say, oh, you don't know me very well, do you? Because I've never done this for money. And I have left jobs that were well-paying jobs before because if the treatment is disrespectful, too disrespectful, I count the cost and I say, I would rather live under a bridge in Las Vegas than come into this office one more day. And so I take the leap of faith and I trust that I will be provided for because I can provide for myself. And it's a window of opportunity. And every single time my life improves over the long haul, when it's a rough landing sometimes, but life gets better on the other side every single time. So I have a history of personal experience to say, yeah, I got a way out of this. We always encourage you now to listen to that small, still voice before it becomes a booming regret. We never regret the things we did, the things we tried and didn't work out. We don't regret that. I don't regret one divorce, and I've had more than a couple. But we will regret the things we never dared dream of, the things we didn't risk doing, saying, or being. That regret at the end of their life, people don't ever regret. Um, it's about the things we love, the people who love us, the difference we want to make in the world. One of the biggest regrets I hear from women is that they should have written that book. I meet women all the time who have a book to write. I know women who've been writing their book for 30 years. At this point in time, I want to say, you don't need to write a book. You are the book. Right now, you are the book of procrastination, but you're a book, and people are reading you and your actions and your intentions and your words and your body language every single day. Nothing is wasted. Everything is recyclable, including that. Consider when you're thinking about your life and your legacy, what is the story you want to tell yourself when this is over? Because that's the only story that matters. Not the story that other people say about you. Everybody's entitled to opinion. They're like assholes. Everybody's got one. Haters going to hate. People are going to love you or hate you. They do me. Usually in direct proportion to how many secrets they're trying to hide. They think I have X-ray vision. They're not far off. I can see through gaslighting in a heartbeat. But how did that happen? By being gaslit for years and decades across various platforms in family, in church, in career, in education, in child rearing. You can't bullshit a bullshitter. I've seen about everything. And people who try to scare me, again, you don't know me very well, do you? If your intuition sends you direct messages and you disregard, discount, or disagree with them, and so you keep trying to live your life by command and control, sooner or later, the universe will get your attention. My sister used to say, if you don't hear when it's a whisper, it becomes a shout. If you don't hear spirit when it shouts, it brings a two by four to get your attention. And that's the part we're always trying to avoid. I don't want to have to hit bottom to get well. Well, there are a lot of opportunities to exit this train wreck anywhere along the way, but we keep staying in our comfort zone rather than risk confrontation. Perfect example. Here's what I know for sure, as Oprah would say. I'm not here to be quiet. I'm not here to keep you comfortable. I'm not here to mirror your image because that's all smoke and mirrors. What I'm here to do is to observe, is to listen carefully, is to see, hear, and interpret all the 93% of nonverbal communication you're sending, and then to hold up this mirror from across the table so you can see yourself clearly, or so you can see what I see, and then we can dialogue about what I see that needs correction. Either of those are okay. Instead, I hold up a mirror and people who don't want to look see resting bitch face, RBF, resting bitch face. Yep, I got that. I practice smiling so I don't scare people, you included. And that is that my body language speaks volumes. I don't have to say much for people to imagine, to fill in the blanks, let's just say. It's also true that people either love me or they hate me, and that I have gotten okay with that because in my spirit-filled life, what you think of me is none of my business. Only thing that matters is what I think of me and what God thinks of me. And everybody wants it to be, and what my husband thinks of me and what my children think of me. Nope, nope, none of that matters. Because at the end of the day, we come into the world alone. Guess what? We're going to go out alone too. Nobody knows what the other side of this birth canal is going to look like, or when, or how. If all we have is this present moment, in this one moment, then all I have is who I am, what I'm bringing to the table, and the evidence of my senses, seen and unseen, to evaluate what the next right thing for me to do is. That's what I've been doing for 2 years. I've been evaluating, catching the windows of opportunity, inviting guests I never would have met or seen or imagined would say yes. And with every conversation I learn in real time. They are raw, real, and relatable. They are gracious with me when my white bubble bursts right before their very eyes and I go ugly cry on camera. And I don't edit that out either. In fact, I turned the editing over to my podcast producer last year because he does a better job than I do. I would edit the bejesus out of everything. So one of the things in my work, and I work mostly with women, some men, fewer men now than ever before because I have much tighter boundaries around the kind of men that I will work with, or the kind of women for that matter. I'm kind of picky. Beauty of being retired. I get to be picky. I get to choose. And if it's not fun or it doesn't bring me joy or it doesn't pass my sniff test, then I don't do it. If it's not a hell yeah, it's a no. If it doesn't taste good, spit it out. Life gets really simple at this stage of the game. So something curious started happening as I was working with people, and it's been happening for 30 years, so it's not new. I just finally noticed that everybody I talk to, no matter what venue it is, this same thing happens. Pretty soon they start quoting me. Little phrases, simple truths, nuggets that drop. Um, Usually it happens during a deep conversation. I'm having one-on-one with somebody, and it's it is a challenge and a confirmation and an aha moment of what I call lucidity. I am lucid, loved, understood, cherished, included, and desired, the heartbeat of every human on the planet. We could solve every problem in this world, this country, this neighborhood, this family, this body, simply by talking to people instead of about them and assuming good intent. For 1 minute, think about the self-talk, the way you speak to yourself in the morning in the mirror when you get a flash of your naked body. If it is anything less than those things, girl, we got to talk. We got some work to do. We want to be loved, understood, cherished, not cared for. I don't want anybody to burden anybody. Cherished, included, and desired. Humanity. It is our heart's deepest desires. God gives us the desires of our heart, and He doesn't give it to us unless there is a path to fulfill it. We miss the fulfillment of those desires because we make decisions based on self along the way, to play small, to make our parents happy, to, get a position, a higher position in the organization. We make these selfish decisions that later place us in a position to be hurt. How does that do that? By breaking the connection to ourselves and the connection we have to other people. If I am siloed, I'm in solitary confinement, I'm not feeling loved, understood, cherished, included, or desired. So, how do we get there? So, these people and these little deep truths, they call them Kimisms. They're telling me I should write a book of Kimisms. Problem is I've said so many of them over the years and I forget about them as soon as they're out my mouth. I couldn't probably create one. I can create snippets of them, and some of them I still say on the regular because of who I am. But honestly, if I could get a room full of the hundreds of people in my life who've changed because I've shared those with them, they could write the book. I am the book. If you want to know more, let's have coffee. When I get a nugget for somebody, it is spirit showing up in real time. It's not performed, it's not rehearsed, it's not polished. It's a sacred transmission. It's not me being brilliant or wise or smart. It is me being a conduit, a reflection of the good in you. And when we reflect the good, if there are things that are blocking you from God or blocking you from being your best self, they show up like interference in front of the mirror. And so we pick those things out and get rid of those so that what you get is a clear view, a clear image. And when you have a clear image of yourself, then when you're in the world, other people get the clear image of you because you are fully showing up in your authentic self, in your power, in your voice, in your belief system, in your humanity. My friend Joseph did a thing a few years ago and had t-shirts printed, and the one I have still says, "Love is still the answer." It is to all of it, but not self-love, God love. Not God love, universal love. Not universal love, unconditional love. If you don't have a grasp on unconditional love, you are never going to be able to love yourself. And if you can't love yourself, you are not going to be able to love other people well at all. If you want to know what somebody's relationship with God is, this is one of my favorites. If you want to know what somebody's relationship with God is, watch how their relationships with other people. If I am trying to dominate and control people, then I have a God that I think is there to do my bidding. He is my personal Santa Claus. And if things go wrong, I'm going to blame him. Not going to blame me. It wasn't my selfish decisions. I'll blame God. And then I'll be mad, and then that will fuel my inhumane treatment of other humans. See how that works? Cycle. We cycle. So this is how transformation happens, not from a stage, but from a circle of inclusion, not from putting down layers of protection, to keep the manure from seeping up through the cracks, but to bring the right tools to the job to deconstruct the lies we've been told, the lies we've been sold, the lies we have internalized, and now not only tell ourselves, but spread to anybody who will listen on social media or to the generations that we birth and who follow. Do you believe what you believe because you were told to? Or because it wasn't safe not to? Do you perform to be accepted? Um, are your beliefs an accurate depiction of your value system, your integrity, your authentic self? Do you even know what an authentic self is? Or have you been living the mold of who you should be so long? This is why midlife is a wonderful thing, because women do this all the time. And it's not until that empty nesting happens, the kids start to move out, and they can't stay distracted with carpools and finances and prom dresses, that they have to stop and say, oh my God, where did I go? Who am I? What do I want to be when I grow up? The other thing that happens, I'm telling you, when kids move out, you got a lot of disposable income you didn't know you were spending on them. What do you do with all that extra money? I did a blog once and after one of my divorces that said, with this ring, I me wed. I went out and bought myself a ruby and diamond ring and I put it on there and I treated myself the way I had always treated the men I loved, with patience and tolerance and unconditional love. I took myself to great restaurants. I learned how to move in the world in a way that honored me. I was my own best friend. And by the time I met my husband, my now husband, I not only I was okay living alone, not because I was ever lonely. I like my company, not um, because I was angry at men. All they want is a nurse or a purse. No, I had gotten through that. That was a phase, let me tell you. But I was there because any man that came into my world would see exactly and all of who I am because I hid absolutely nothing about my beliefs, my lifestyle, my activities. There was no, what do they want me to be? And I'll be that. Way past that. And I authentically attracted what I had always wanted and had always been, a partner, a man who wakes up happy and goes to bed happy, full of affirmation and touch, which is my love language. And my life is better because of it. There were no, there's a song I listened to this week. It was Sugarland from 20, I want to say 13. I ain't settling for anything less than everything. I'm not, because I'll have to, because I have everything I need in every moment. So I'm never settling. And if somebody tries to pigeonhole me into a mold so they can be comfortable, I am not settling for dummy and down, because I've done that before too. Learned it at my mama's knee. Boys don't like girls who are too smart. And then later on, boys don't like girls who are ambitious. And then later on, boys don't like women who are aggressive. And I don't like boys for partners. So there you go. Life is punctuated by leaps of faith and seasons of surrender. Socrates said, the unexamined life is not worth living. That means critical thinking. Oh my God, not that. That means emotional intelligence. What? By now, I've had my fair share of false starts and leaps of faith and seasons of surrender. I have moved into, out of, through, and beyond many iterations of myself. This body has forever been my home and my nemesis. Let's talk about change, how it arrives, how we navigate it, how we try to control or avoid it, and how we make peace with ourselves and with each other. It used to be on social media 20 years ago, 15 years ago, social media now. Used to be that forums, remember those chat rooms and forums, were a safe space in anonymous global community. First time we ever knew there was anything was when I had AOL dial-up on a very, very, very old computer. And it allowed us to hear things we'd never heard and see things from another perspective and understand that underneath all of our differences, we are more alike than we are different because everybody only wants to be loved, understood, cherished, included, and desired. Those things, everything else will fall into place. Those forums then became online groups, and then they became private groups or closed groups, and then they became movements and movements of like-minded people, kind of like what happened with AA 12-step meetings when they started saying these ones are for gay folk and these ones are for women only and these ones are for this drug and these ones are for that food. Well, it's still an underlying spiritual condition. We are still all human. There is still lack of power. That's our dilemma. So it had morphed into this street fight of disinformation and attack. And now it doesn't feel so safe anymore. And in the last year, I've been moving readily, steadily off of as corporate surveillance becomes more of a thing. I have been moving steadily back off of the ones who bent the knee first. Let's just say. Not a neighborhood I want to live in. And I have taken those steps to distance myself so that I can still be true to my calling, my voice, and cut some of the noise out that would distract me or drain my energy. Some people call those energy vampires, but I'm telling you, the vampires come in droves these days. And I only have so much energy to go around. I guard it jealously. So did I say calling? I did. I did say that. Is that a religious word? In some circles. Is it a purpose-driven word? Sure. Is it an inner knowing that you cannot look away from the thing that you find unjust, unholy, unacceptable, and look at yourself in the mirror in the morning? It is a commitment. A calling is, I used to, so I did a lot of work with pastors over the years, pastors, preachers, laity, right? And clergy. And there were people who were there because they had a calling. They call it a God calling, but they had a purpose and a passion for truth and for expository teaching and for shepherding people who were hurting. And that drove them. And then there were people who were just there for the paycheck or the mega church or the $1 million that came with it when you built to a certain size. They did the same things. They all went to church on Sunday. They all performed their ceremonies. They all had their positions and titles and followers. Because if you pull back that veneer of who they say they are and you look at how they really live their life, there's a reason. In Las Vegas, I did a seminar series at a church once called Sexual Addiction, the church's best kept secret. Looks like today I could do one on sexual addiction, the government's best kept secret, because power corrupts absolutely. Absolute power. I saw it in law enforcement. I worked for law enforcement for a while. And the people who did it out of a love of humanity or because something had happened in their lifetime that gave them a purpose and a passion and a calling, those were the good cops. Those are the helpers. Those are the ones who do what they have to do, even when it's ugly, but they don't love it. They don't relish it. They don't brag about it. And they sure as hell don't post videos over it. Okay? The ones who are there for the paycheck are looking for notoriety, are looking for control, are looking for some sense of, I call it small man syndrome, some sense of power that they know they don't deserve and can't get any other way. Um, Not so good. And those are the ones that get bounced, whether it's in clergy or whether it's in law enforcement, they get bounced from city to city to city, from job to job to job, because when they screw up over here, we protect our own, we keep the secrets. And when we keep the secrets, it doesn't come out. We seal the files and we bump them to another jurisdiction. We bump them to another parish. We bump them to another place where that many more children get abused or that many more people get assaulted under the wire. And then we lie about it. And then, because it's not us or our children or our color, we say, well, they must have deserved it. They must have done something wrong or it wouldn't be happening. Because then I don't have to engage my compassionate heart. In fact, when the Bible talks about having their hearts are hardened, I would say that's a fair, accurate description of our world today. Probably has always been in every generation. I've just never been old enough to notice. So these people who work from a higher calling, um, they are purpose driven, absolutely, unstoppable until their last breath. You know by now, I don't ever get through a podcast without tears. Not white woman tears. They are cleansing tears. They are washing out that old shit and coming up with my purpose, my power, my passion in this moment, in this space with you. What is it I want you to know? If I could just impart one thing. With this recent shift into advanced AI and surveillance technology, people are drawn to one of two paths. Either high tech, low people, so they don't have any real life relations. It's all online where you can be whatever you want to be. You can say whatever you want to say with or without impunity. And those result in a depersonalized connection with one after another. They're just followers, they're not friends. They say they're friends, but nobody has your home phone number. They see the image of you they fall in love with. That's called catfishing. And then they find out that you are nothing like what you propose to be online. When you are living authentically, you invite people behind the curtain. Here, come and see how I live. Come and see how I move in the world. Come and see my bank account. Not only do I have nothing to hide, but if there is something that needs to be reflected to me for correction, I am open to that. But if what you're going to do is project your pain onto me, you don't get an audience here. The need to belong, to be seen, to be heard, to be believed is natural to our herd instinct. The need to be right, to be elevated, to be worshiped is symptomatic of toxic shame masquerading as humanity. So when they say mask up, and we masked up literally in 2020, but we were doing it for 30 years before that, and we're going to do it for 30 years after that. Depends on who's looking. I used to have like three personas. I had one for church, one for home, and one for work. And I was always trying to keep track of who I was supposed to be, which hat in which space. I only have one now. I got rid off of LinkedIn yesterday because yesterday was November 3rd, and on November 4th, they were going to be doing teaching their AI with my content. I wrestled with that for weeks before I finally had a moment of clarity with my team and decided to cut the cord because in the cost benefit analysis, LinkedIn was not my ideal client pool, A, and B, it felt like work to be there. I don't want it to feel like work. I want life to be fun. So I only do what I love to do. One voice evolving, I love to do. Leading with heart training for corporate and organizations, I love to do that. But I don't like wrestling with people's denial that they have a problem. That part is why I don't work in treatment centers anymore. I don't work with just any old alcoholic anymore because breaking denial is a lot of damn work, and I am not the savior of your world or the world. I am one voice evolving. You are welcome to come along. You are welcome to share the space. I am happy to speak with you at any given point about any given thing. But if what you want to do is pick my brain so you can go monetize better, this ain't about the money. Never was, never will be. Something new is emerging now, a third way. Doesn't have to be high tech, low touch, and it doesn't have to be what it was 20 years ago, high touch, low tech, where everything I did was live and in person. This new way is higher tech, higher touch. So instead of one-on-one, I can work one on many. Instead of having to go to every city in the country, I can create products. I can do Zoom. We can be virtual. And I have learned how to feel safe in virtual spaces and how to create safety in virtual spaces, something that was not possible for us to do 10 or 15 years ago because technology had not advanced that far. The pandemic gave us a lot of gifts, and that's one of them. So now we can wield these tools like AI, like ChatGPT, with intention. A hammer in the hand of a novice can hurt, but a hammer in the hand of a professional can build the world. Leadership, the same way. In the hands of inexperienced, unresolved trauma, you only know what happened to you, and you're just going to recreate that and lead like that with other people. That can hurt. It can hurt the business. It can hurt the team. It can hurt your family because what happens at work doesn't stay at work. It follows your butt home. But leadership in the hands of the pro can change the world. And so my task, for better or worse, my task, my calling, the best use of my knowledge, skills, and ability, the best use of my knowledge, skills, and ability is to train the trainers, is to bypass. When I go into corporate America, I always take our message, leading with heart, is what I've called it before. And then I called it culture and communications to soften the blow for corporate America. F that, I'm back to leading with heart. And I take that in and we do the C-suite and we do the lowest paid worker on the floor. and we get them singing the same song. And then we take it to the middle management. And in it, because in the middle management is where things get stuck. It's where they get siloed. It's where people are competing for the big bucks or the corner office or whatever the hell that is. That's where it gets stuck. And people either get on board or they self-select out normally. Sometimes they have to have a nudge, but most of the time they figure it out. Well, when I went into corporate America this time, uh, as a consultant, not as an employee, as a consultant, a couple of things have happened. And one of those is that corporate America is the middle managers of our country. They're not the boss. They are not the boss. They are the ones that the top range of government is bearing down on to get her done, and that the lowest ones are being taken advantage of, and the highest ones can have culpable deniability. So I'm going to tell you, uh, I don't like to do this. All right, story time. I went to a facility last year in the South, and they looked really good on paper. They looked very diverse, really good on paper. But in reality, they had all the white folks in the office and the Hispanic Latinas on the production floor and the black and brown folk in the shipping department and the Asian folk in finance. Was that my filter that saw it that way? Sure, maybe. But I was looking at just the numbers and the departments and the pay grades and all of that. And it looked to me like it was going to be an exciting opportunity to see diversity in action until I landed on the ground. And what things look like on paper is not always what you see when you peek behind the curtain and go into the inner offices. And in the inner offices, what I saw was plantation management. It was, and oh, by the way, it was governed not by the people in the plant at all. They were dictated to by the global company that owned them, who were dictated to by the government contracts that made them so viable that they could own these many companies. So my calling is to bypass mid-management, just like it's always been, same shit, different day, and go take this to the policymakers, the decision makers, the people who really do move the needle. And the chances are probably pretty good that when I get there, I'm going to see behind the curtain that it's the Wizard of Oz too. And there ain't nobody in charge. They're all just um, their own little kind of good old boy network. Wouldn't surprise me. But you know, I'm showing up with good intent. And I'm going to talk to people instead of about them. And I'm going to call it what it is in real time when it happens. I've said before, if there's an elephant in the living room, if there's an elephant in the living room, I'm going to put that on the table so we can all smell it and figure out what to do about it. I'm not going to walk around it. I'm not going to pretend it doesn't exist. I'm not going to be careful what I say so nobody has to notice. I lead by example naturally. Everything I do is for my personal growth first, and then I invite people to come along, take what they need, and leave the rest. So there's another piece I want to name here. And if you've been following me on Substack, because that's the only place I posted about it, you've known that I've been deconstructing my whiteness for a few months. I've been deconstructing my shock ever since George Floyd. But oh my God, the things I've learned about dynamics, racial dynamics, relational dynamics, um, would write a book that I'm not ever going to write. I am the book. But this time, it was time because I had some guests on this past season. I had some guests on who uh, had rich, historically diverse histories that they could point to and name and claim, and that helped them understand their current condition. I, however, was what my mom called a Heinz 57. We're just a little of everything. And that was as far as it ever got. And so I started trying to deconstruct that, saying, so what's my heritage? What's my lineage in this lily white skin? And it didn't take long. Took a couple months to figure out that white is not the color of your skin. White is a system that is put in place to keep certain people in positions of power and to denigrate anybody who's not that. So, did whiteness hurt me? Fuck yeah, it did. You know why? Because the perfect white body is more than just sleek hair. It is a certain size, it is a certain style, it is a certain attitude, it is a certain demure for women, and it is complicity in the extreme that says if I see injustice against black or brown people, I'm going to look the other way. If I see a man beating his wife, I'm going to mind my own business. If I see somebody doing a financial scam, as long as it doesn't hurt my company, I'm not going to say anything. It's not my job. What do you think about that? Where do you fall in that spectrum? So it was a deeper reckoning for me. My whiteness for far too long was a lens I didn't know I was looking through. It kept me safe, sheltered, and centered. I, me, my, and mine. But safety for some comes at a cost to others. And once I saw what it had cost others, once you see it, you can't unsee it. And when I saw what it cost me, then I knew it was time to come out of retirement. The opportunities missed, the relationships lost, the fear in the face of anything that was different than my little bubble. I call it my white bubble. Um, and what I grew up in cost me more than I was willing to continue to pay. So deconstructing that inherited privilege hasn't been a side journey. It's been the center of the spiritual evolution I have done since Louisville 2 years ago when I met Dr. Nikki Lanier at the Rare Woman Collective. And I always give her a shout out. Great work, fabulous woman, overqualified, and graceful, compassionate, called, and committed woman. As I peeled back the layers of bias, blindness, and complicity, I saw that voice without equity is just more noise. It's more hustle culture. It's more go along to get along. So I stopped centering myself in every room and I started listening in a different way. I think that's when my podcast started to shift, but certainly started to shift me because I wasn't just facilitating a conversation. I was engaging the conversation. And before you knew it, by the time we did the one with Jen Appel, my producer said, I had to wonder, is she interviewing you or you interviewing her? Because I talked a lot. So learning in public, unlearning in real time, That was how One Voice Evolving, the podcast, was born and how it progressed. From me needing to know what I didn't know, and that the only way I could do that reliably was to get it directly from diverse voices and other people's lived experience, because I was raised in on the right side of the tracks where the white folks lived. Tells you I've been around a while. And got in trouble for going over to see my black folk friends in the store there because they were so nice to me. So I want to welcome you. We're not doing seasons anymore. First change. No more seasons. We hit 75 episodes. We're just going to start counting now. Next episode in 2026 is going to be episode 76. One Voice Evolving, Better You, Better World is not a place where you get a seat at the table. It is a place where truth gets center stage. Your truth, my truth, and our collective truth. And together we will respect and care and hold each other lovingly accountable uh, to creating a better life for ourselves, our loved ones, our communities, and the world at large. Because it doesn't stop just with the people who you prefer. Humanity, love, and life do not stop at the end of your street or your state. It has been a wonderful, wonderful weekly journey of discovery that has shaped the container until One Voice Evolving uh, is ready to rebrand. And it's not ready to rebrand because I have an intention or I have an agenda. And by the way, I always have an agenda and it's never hidden. And my agenda is to bring a message of hope and healing to you and to whomever wants to have it at a price you can afford, emotionally, physically, spiritually, financially. Each season has shifted us from reclaiming joy in DEI, which was season one, to resilience redefined, season two, and then resilience reimagined this last year, because whatever we thought life was supposed to be in our country or our relationships, that sand has shifted quickly beneath our feet, and we have been scrambling to stand up. Scripture says that faith is the substance of things hoped for and the evidence of things not yet seen. We get to choose not what happens to us, but how we react to it. We make our decisions in real time, generally out of either love or fear, out of faith or fear. You watched me cut my hair. Here at One Voice Evolving, we're calling a thing, and moving in collective faith, purpose, and action. Here at One Voice Evolving, we are calling a thing, and moving in a collective voice that requires purpose and action. And calling. My team. I love my team. I've learned how to delegate. I've learned how to pick. My picker's not broken. I've learned how to find out we're in alignment, and I have created collaboration agreements for my collaborators, for people who want to share their lists with me, so that we're all on the same page before we ever get started. Because that same page allows for mutual respect, reciprocity, truth telling, calling people out to call them in. And it is intimacy. And we are loved, understood, cherished, included, and desired in our circles. So the shift has already occurred. And it was not because I'm a leader and led the change, but because I'm an observer and I can clearly see what's being placed before us. in the lives and voices and movements of women in the world in these times. This isn't just a rebrand, it's a rebirth. One voice evolving becomes one collective voice evolving. Better you, better world. Just like we're seeing in politics today. And then we're surprised because we didn't see it coming. But all of the red flags were there, weren't they? In fact, sometimes they were blatant. They even told us what they were going to do, and we made excuses for why that wouldn't be possible. But so we can be surprised now and say we didn't see it coming. But we didn't see it coming because we were so busy centering ourselves and our little lives and our ambition and our drive and our needs and desires, our what the big book calls our selfish and self-centeredness, that we forgot about the human survival imperative of looking with love and compassion upon all of humanity, not just our preferred few. We must name the road that led us here. Political disruption, economic uncertainty, societal upheaval, personal challenges. Every woman I work with arrives from a different origin with a story etched into her skin, her memory, even her DNA. Grief, rage, resilience, joy, it's all there, and it's all welcome here. Diversity isn't a concept, it's a force of nature. If you look around you, there are infinite varieties of life in every form. An apple tree isn't inherently superior to a peach tree or a blueberry bush, just different. Our Creator is inclusive. Wounded humans stir the pot of preference, privilege, and prohibition. Animals, fish, and trees, and bushes and flowers. What we're witnessing now is the outward expression of a communal shift, not just mine, but ours. This is the groundwork for a movement primed for 2026, rooted in truth, ripened in community, ready to rise and take constructive collective action. Well, no writing or podcast or speaking is going to get us there. These are soul shifting, time limited opportunities to change the trajectory of humanity. I see us in all our diverse challenges and color. Colorblind is still blind and not something to aspire to. It's not an excuse. It is not a defense. It is bullshit. So if you've ever been told to sit down, shut up, or be quiet, may this be your permission to stand, to speak, to move differently in the world, to begin. Your voice matters, and we're just getting started. One collective voice evolving, better you, better world.